Turning points that change the modern world. The story of the Glorious Revolution. What if a revolution could change the future of government without burning a capital to the ground? What if the most important battle in a country's political history was not fought with cannons in the streets, but with fear, letters, courtrooms, ships, and a single terrifying question? Can a king rule above the law? For centuries, kings had claimed that their authority came from God. They were not simply rulers, they were symbols of order. They wore crowns, commanded armies, appointed officials, and expected obedience. But in England, in 1688, that old idea faced a dangerous test. One king believed he could use royal power to bend the law. A group of bishops decided they would rather risk prison than obey him. A newborn baby suddenly changed the future of the throne. A secret letter crossed the sea, and a Dutch prince landed in England with an army, not only to claim a crown, but to change the meaning of kingship itself. This is the story of the Glorious Revolution. And the great mystery is this: how did England replace a king, limit the monarchy, and create one of the most important models for modern constitutional government without becoming another battlefield of civil war? The answer begins with a king who thought the crown was stronger than Parliament. His name was James II. When James became king in 1685, many people already feared him, not because he was weak, but because he was determined. James was Catholic in a country where most political power rested in Protestant hands. England had already been torn apart by religious conflict, civil war, execution, dictatorship, restoration, and fear of absolute monarchy. Many English Protestants looked across the Channel at France, where Louis XIV ruled with enormous royal authority, and they wondered whether James wanted to bring the same kind of rule to England. At first, many members of Parliament chose caution. They did not want another civil war. They did not want another revolution. They hoped that James would rule carefully, and that after his death, the throne would pass to his Protestant daughter Mary. But James did not move carefully. He moved like a man who believed time was on his side. He wanted Catholics to be allowed into public office. He wanted to loosen the laws that restricted religious dissenters. Some of this sounded like tolerance, but many people suspected something else. They believed James was not simply defending liberty of conscience. They believed he was using religious liberty as a weapon to increase royal power. Because the question was not only whether Catholics or dissenters should have rights. The question was who had the authority to change the law: Parliament or the king alone? James issued declarations. He suspended laws. He used royal power to bypass statutes that Parliament had passed. He placed Catholics in important military and government positions. He maintained a standing army in peacetime, something many English people associated with tyranny. To modern ears, a standing army may sound normal, but in 17th century England, it sounded dangerous. People remembered the Civil War. They remembered soldiers ruling towns. They remembered the fear of military government. A permanent army, loyal to the king, seemed like the tool a monarch would use if words failed and force became necessary. Then came the moment that turned concern into alarm. James ordered his Declaration of Indulgence to be read aloud in churches. Imagine the scene. It is Sunday morning. Churches across England are filled with worshippers. The king wants his declaration read from the pulpit so that royal policy enters the sacred space of the church itself. But 7 bishops refuse. They are not radicals. They are not revolutionaries. They are senior figures of the Church of England. They write a petition to the king, respectfully arguing that they cannot in good conscience order the declaration to be read. James sees this not as a disagreement but as defiance, so he has them prosecuted. 7 bishops are sent to trial. Now the crisis leaves the palace and enters the streets. Crowds gather. London waits. The question of the moment is no longer hidden inside legal language. Can the king punish religious leaders simply because they refuse to support his use of royal power? Inside the courtroom, the bishops stand accused of seditious libel. Outside, the public understands that something much larger is being judged. If the bishops are convicted, the king wins more than a trial. He proves that even the highest churchmen can be crushed when they resist him. But if the bishops are acquitted, the king's authority will be shaken in front of the whole nation. The verdict comes, not guilty. The streets erupt in celebration. People cheer. Bells ring. Soldiers reportedly join the excitement. The king has tried to make an example of the bishops, but instead the trial has made an example of him. James has discovered that power can look enormous from inside a palace and fragile from outside a courtroom. But then, almost at the same time, another event changes everything. A baby is born. James's wife, Mary of Modena, gives birth to a son. To James, this is joy. A male heir, a future king, a dynasty secured. To his opponents, it is a nightmare. Until this moment, many had tolerated James because they expected his Protestant daughter Mary to succeed him. They thought his reign might be a temporary problem. But now, there is a Catholic male heir. Suddenly, the fear is not one Catholic king. It is a Catholic dynasty. The future no longer looks temporary. It looks permanent. Rumors spread. Some people even claim the baby is not real, that another child has been smuggled into the birth chamber. The rumor is absurd, but its existence reveals the depth of distrust. When people no longer trust the royal family's own nursery, the monarchy has entered dangerous territory. And somewhere in England, a group of powerful men decides that waiting is no longer enough. They make a choice that could be called treason if it fails, and salvation if it succeeds. They write to William of Orange. William is not just any foreign prince. He is Protestant. He is married to Mary, James's daughter. He is also James's nephew, and in Europe, he is one of the major opponents of Louis XIV of France. To William, England is not only a kingdom in crisis, it is also a key piece on the European chessboard. If England remains under James and James leans toward France, then William's struggle against French power becomes harder. But if England joins him, the balance of Europe changes. So when English leaders invite William to come, the invitation is both domestic and international. It is about religion. It is about parliament. It is about law. And it is about the future of Europe. The letter is signed by 7 prominent Englishmen. Later, they would be remembered as the Immortal Seven. But at the time, they were taking an enormous risk. They were inviting a foreign ruler to bring an army into England. That is the kind of decision that can destroy reputations, families, and lives. William prepares carefully. He does not want to look like a conqueror. He wants to look like a deliverer. He gathers ships, soldiers, supplies, and declarations. He presents his expedition as a mission to protect English laws, liberties, and Protestant religion. Then, in November 1688, William lands at Brixham in southwest England. The wind, the sea, and politics have brought him to the English coast. Now, the fate of the kingdom depends on one question. Will England fight for James? At first, James still has the crown. He still has an army. He still has the symbols of monarchy. But symbols are not the same as loyalty. As William moves forward, support begins to fall away from James. Nobles hesitate, officers defect, political leaders shift. Even members of James's own family abandon him. One of the most painful defections is John Churchill, one of James's leading military men. Then James's daughter Anne also leaves him. Imagine the king receiving the news. His political allies are disappearing. His commanders cannot be trusted. His daughter is gone. The crisis is no longer outside the palace. It is inside his own family. James tries to flee. He is captured. Then he is allowed to escape again. In December 1688, James leaves England for France, and with that, the central mystery becomes even sharper. If the king has fled, what has happened to the throne? Is James still king? Has he abdicated? Can Parliament declare the throne vacant? Can a crown be offered like a contract? These questions matter because England is trying to do something extraordinary. It does not want to say simply that the strongest army wins. It does not want to admit that William is king by conquest. It wants to create a legal story, a constitutional story, a story in which the nation has not been conquered, but rescued. A convention parliament meets in 1689. The debate is intense. Some want to preserve as much continuity as possible. Others want to make clear that James has broken the rules of kingship. Finally, Parliament treats James's flight as an abdication. The throne is declared vacant. William and Mary are offered the crown jointly, but not as an unconditional gift. This is the heart of the Glorious Revolution. William and Mary receive the crown, but they receive it with conditions. Before they rule, they must accept a declaration of rights. Later, much of it becomes the Bill of Rights of 1689. This document is not simply a list of complaints. It is a political warning carved into law. It says that the king cannot suspend laws without parliament. The king cannot levy money without parliament. The king cannot keep a standing army in peacetime without parliament's consent. Elections of members of parliament should be free. Speech and debate in parliament should not be punished in courts outside parliament. Subjects have the right to petition the king. Excessive bail and cruel punishments are condemned, and parliaments should be held frequently. In other words, the crown remains. The monarchy survives. But the meaning of monarchy changes. The king is no longer above the law. The king is inside the law. The crown is no longer a blank check from heaven. It is a public office limited by parliament, law, and political consent. This is why the Glorious Revolution matters so much. It does not create modern democracy overnight. England is still unequal. Voting is still limited. Religious freedom is still incomplete. Catholics are still excluded from the throne. The political world of 1689 is not the same as the democratic world people imagine today. But something decisive has happened. A principle has been strengthened that will echo through the modern age. Government is not simply the personal possession of a ruler. Power must be limited. Taxation requires consent. Law cannot be suspended by personal will. Parliament has rights. The people, through their representatives, matter, and the monarch must govern according to law. This is the difference between a rebellion and a turning point. A rebellion may remove a ruler. A turning point changes the rules by which future rulers must govern. The Glorious Revolution becomes one of the great foundations of constitutional monarchy. It helps establish a model in which a country can keep a monarch, keep ceremony, keep tradition, and yet place real political power under legal and parliamentary control. This model will shape Britain's future. It will influence political thought across the Atlantic. It will become part of the background to later arguments about rights, representation, taxation, and liberty. When American colonists in the 18th century argue about their rights as Englishmen, they inherit a political language shaped partly by struggles like this one. When later constitutional governments try to separate the dignity of the state from the unchecked will of one ruler, the shadow of 1688 is still there. But the story also has a darker complication. The name Glorious Revolution can be misleading. In England, the transfer of power was comparatively bloodless. But across the wider kingdoms connected to the English crown, especially in Ireland and Scotland, the aftermath brought conflict, fear, and violence. The revolution was not equally glorious for everyone. It strengthened Protestant political power and deepened divisions that would shape the British Isles for generations. So the importance of 1688 is not that it created a perfect political order. It did not. Its importance is that it made a powerful argument that survived long after the people involved were gone. A king who violates the laws and liberties of the kingdom can lose the throne. A monarch's authority can be conditional. A nation can place law above the ruler, and Parliament can become the central guardian of political power. Think again about the pieces of the story. 7 bishops refuse to read a royal declaration. A court verdict embarrasses a king. A baby's birth terrifies a political nation. 7 men send a secret invitation across the sea. A prince lands with an army. A king's support melts away. A throne is declared vacant. A crown is offered with conditions. And a Bill of Rights turns crisis into constitutional memory. That is the drama of the Glorious Revolution. Not a crowd storming a palace. Not a king executed in public, not a republic declared in one explosive moment, but something quieter, colder, and perhaps even more lasting. A political system learns how to bind power with law. The most important scene may be the moment Parliament says, in effect, the crown can continue, but it cannot continue on the old terms. That is why 1688 belongs in the story of the modern world. Because modern politics is built around a question that every society must answer. Who controls power? The ruler, the army, the church, the people, the law? In the Glorious Revolution, England did not fully answer that question in the democratic way we might expect today. But it gave one of the most influential answers of its age. The ruler does not stand alone. The ruler must answer to law. The ruler must govern with parliament. And if the ruler tries to place personal will above the nation's liberties, the throne itself can be challenged. This was the turning point. The monarchy remained, but absolute monarchy lost. The crown survived, but parliament rose. And from that moment, the idea spread that the strongest government is not the one where one person has unlimited power. It is the one where power is controlled before it becomes tyranny. That is the legacy of the Glorious Revolution. A revolution that did not look like the revolutions that came later. A revolution that replaced a king, but kept a kingdom. A revolution that made a simple idea impossible to ignore. Even kings must live under the law.